Hey everyone, welcome back to Mike's Movie Talk, the show where we talk about movies. I'm Mike Myers, and I have a very special guest with me today, Rosalie Kahaly, and today we're going to be talking about Isle of Dogs. I love this movie, and we talked about Fantastic Mr. Fox, probably our second episode of the show, so this is really cool to come back and talk about another one of Wes Anderson's stop-motion greats, I would say. I love this movie. What do you think about this movie?
I really enjoyed it. Since I saw the trailer, I saw it a long time ago, but actually getting to see it, it was just so enjoyable, and you couldn't look away for the most part.
I know, yeah.
I know it's a consistent thing that Wes Anderson, his dialogue's fast, and it's just so bouncy and rhythmic.
Yeah.
And so that's why I just couldn't look away or stop listening, because it was just I'm gonna miss something that would be either really intricate or just really funny.
You really do have to pay attention, because even little tiny little details, and we'll talk about this later, but in a lot of the frames it'll be just even tiny little pieces of text. They're just a little joke or something. Just it's insane, the detail on the little models and everything.
Absolutely.
But just all the stuff he puts in there is great.
Yeah.
But just some background info on the movie. It came out in 2018. As we've said, written and directed by Wes Anderson. And it's set in Japan, where all dogs have been banished following an outbreak of dog flu. It's a really bleak time for these dogs. They're not doing so hot. But the movie follows this young boy named Atari, and he is the nephew of the authoritarian Mayor Kobayashi. And so he sets out to find his missing dog Spots on Trash Island, where all the dogs have been banished to. Which is the aforementioned Isle of Dogs.
Yeah.
So, this story, is pretty dark. Darker than because I had seen this movie not long after it came out, and then I recently rewatched it, so it's been a while. But it's darker than I remembered.
Yes, I think just the idea that the first dog that was sent was Spots, Atari's own dog.
Yeah.
Was just so lonely, and
I know.
He was still in the cage, and they didn't release him or anything. You really didn't know what was happening to him. He was just alone. And then I don't know if we can say a little bit.
We can talk about anything.
Cool.
About the movie.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Then the little reveal later when Atari has crashed onto the island, and they've understood oh, he's looking for his dog. And they kind of know, the dogs that have met him, they kind of know who he's talking about based off the picture. They go to that cage, and the reveal that no one knew how to open his cage.
Well, they had they had the flashback first.
Yeah.
The super touching flashback of where that's when he met Atari. He's in the hospital. He's like, oh, this is your dog, and then he puts in the earpiece, and he's like, oh, I can hear you. And then it cuts straight to the skeleton in the cage. It's end of flashback. I was like, oh my God.
What a reveal. So yeah, I think that was really funny, but also just devastating in the way that they they frame it in such a funny way, but it is
it's
the
very
reality.
dark humor.
Exactly. And in a weird way, because it is stop motion, so they look like toys and fluffy, and it is kind of a strange opposite of Fantastic Mr. Fox that is so bright and pastel. And this is just dark and grungy and dirty, which is cool. So
yeah, there's not a lot of colors in this movie when I think about it.
Yeah.
But a really big contrast from Fantastic Mr. Fox, a whole different vibe.
Yes.
But still just gorgeous, I would say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite parts was whenever they would televise whatever Mayor Kobayashi was saying, and the TV screen that they'd have it on was actually animation.
Yeah, I noticed
drawn
that.
animation, and I was oh, how cool to kind of translate that in a different way, almost having two mediums going on at the same time.
Yeah, that was cool. I noticed that. I was like, oh, that's a cool way of doing things.
Yeah.
This was actually the first PG-13 rated animated film to be nominated for an Academy Award.
Wow.
Which was interesting. But Into the Spider-Verse won for Best Animated, which is so deserving of that. I mean, it's not like it's any
I'm
sort
not
of
upset.
robbery.
Yeah.
I'm not upset. But yeah, as we talked about dark humor, one of my favorite scenes, which is like really close to the beginning of the movie, when you first like after they've done all the setup and stuff, and then you start seeing the dogs on Trash Island. It's one of well, it's like they introduce the gang of dogs with Chief and all of them, and they're like competing against this other pack for that bag of trash.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, they're just growling, and you don't really know if dogs talk in the movie yet. Well, wait.
In the beginning, they have like this thing that's like,
No,
everyone's speaking their native language,
Yeah.
but all dog barks have been translated to
Yeah.
English,
Yeah.
which is like such an interesting thing. And they do like, before we get off track of like the language part, but yeah, like that you don't know necessarily how the dogs are gonna sound yet, but you are given like a warning.
I guess if you've seen the trailers before the movie, then you know.
Yeah.
But like if you, I don't know. But yeah, anyway, so like they were opening the trash bag, and they were all just growling at each other like, oh, this is gonna be like brutal. And then I think it's Edward Norton's character.
Yes.
Who was like, should we? Why don't we just open the bag first and see what's inside and see if it's worth fighting for, and then we can decide if we want to fight for it or not.
And then
Just like that.
Are examining it, and they're like, leftover fries, a rotten piece of meat, like, and they're like, yeah, it's worth it. And
It's
then
worth
like,
it. And then just like the fight just explodes, and
Yeah.
there's just like the big smoke clouds and
yes,
everything.
the smoke cloud was like one of my favorite things that they like would show, both with like explosions, like it was just literally like a
It's like cotton
ball.
balls, I think.
Exactly, and like it was
Yeah.
funny.
But yeah, like I think that scene, and then he just starts talking, before they fight. Really, just like it kind of sets you up for like, oh, so this is how these characters work, and like this is the kind of humor it's going to use going forward, which is really cool.
Yeah,
But I really liked that scene.
yeah,
anyway.
definitely. That was a good startup.
And just so like, just how the whole movie, like the heart and soul of the movie is the dogs. I mean, it's the Isle of Dogs, but like the human characters don't have as much depth, but that's not really the focus, I would say.
Yeah.
But just the way that like they make the dogs just feel like they have complex emotions and real human experience. They're like real human beings, basically.
Yeah, especially like the interaction between, oh gosh, I think it's Chief is the dog's name, and it's Brian.
Bryan Cranston.
Yeah,
yeah,
Bryan
we can talk about the
Cranston,
cast.
yes.
Too.
Yeah, what a great cast,
I
first
know.
off. But yeah, like his character and then Scarlett Johansson's character, Nutmeg. The entire conversation they have, like on top of that water tower, was like really like, it felt like it was like some like not rom-com, but like a noir film.
I kind of get what you're saying.
Yeah, like it just like felt like weird, like in a place of like their dogs, but they're
Yeah.
having like this really like philosophical conversation about like bringing puppies into this.
Yeah, it's like,
world.
oh, I didn't used to be a show dog. I didn't choose that life. Just stuff like that.
And then I did like when she would interrupt, or he was like, "What talent did you have? Or can you do tricks?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "This is me, but I normally have like a 10-pound bowling ball that I'm juggling." And he like imagines it, and he's like, "I can picture it."
Yeah. I know. I wish we had more scenes like that. They have like
Yeah.
2 scenes in the movie with them. But yeah, that was really funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the cast in this movie, oh my God, the cast is stacked. They've got, this is just a few.
Yeah.
Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Scarlett Johansson, Bill Murray, Jeff Goldblum, Greta Gerwig.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and Wes Anderson movies usually have a lot of
Yeah.
big names, but
And then one of my favorites that is in this, and you don't necessarily realize this, is of the 2 scientists, the female scientist, her name is like science assistant Yoko Ono. And she is played by the artist Yoko Ono,
really?
John Lennon's wife.
Oh my
So
God.
That was like such a, like, I listened to that and I was like, Yoko Ono, what a like unique
interesting.
name to choose for her. And
Yeah.
it's literally Yoko Ono.
That's
and I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, like,
I feel like there's so many Easter eggs in this movie that I haven't even like caught on to. Or like a
Exactly.
lot of people haven't caught on to, but that's funny. I didn't realize that.
it was cool.
Yeah, who's your favorite character in the movie?
Oh, I think I'm kind of stuck between Chief, I think is his name. And then, oh gosh, the Oracle, which was that pug.
Yeah.
Like, I thought she was.
I think she was Tilda Swinton. Too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought she was funny because they were like calling her the Oracle, and she's like, she just understands the TV.
Yeah.
Like that's all she knows.
Yeah. She knows how to read TV.
Exactly. And like the weather's playing, and they're like, "What do you think, Oracle?" And she's like, "What?" Like,
I know.
So what a good character.
No, I love her character.
Yeah.
I also, and this is just because I like Jeff Goldblum. I like Jeff Goldblum's character.
Yeah. Which dog was he again?
He was. I can't remember his name in the movie, but
What color?
He like light gray.
Like, okay, yes,
He was
yes.
like the one who was like, oh, did you hear the
rumor?
rumors about Felix? They're like, oh, what? No.
And the fact
Felix?
that, like, in the end, they're like, how do you hear all these rumors? And it's been a thing going on for the entire movie. And he's like, did you hear about this rumor? Like,
did you hear the rumor about puppy snacks? They folded.
What?
They're like, oh my God, what?
Like, crazy.
He's like, yeah, I just like gossip.
It's like, people tell me and I listen. Like,
I love him, but
Yeah.
also, like, I mean, I think Chief's character
Yeah.
probably has the most depth out of all the dogs.
Yes.
Or Spots, I don't know.
yeah, I love, like, the fact that, like, they're related is really
Yeah.
interesting, and they've ended up in two very different lives. And, like, but they both end up loving Atari and, like,
yeah.
just, like, caring for him in, like, the most, like, dog and, like, master way. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so sweet.
I love Chief's whole, like, transformation arc with Atari.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite parts about it.
Especially because, like, when you later learn about, like, why he, like, bit someone and, like, or how he bit someone and he doesn't even know
Yeah.
why, like, that entire backstory, and then, like, growing with Atari in that sense, like, it's just sweet, and, like...
I know. When he was talking about, like, oh, you know, I got adopted in this family, and the boy tried to pet me, and I bit him so hard I didn't know why, you know, and just that was so sad. I was like, oh my God, I feel for him.
Exactly, because you're like, you think about it, and you're like, yeah, dogs don't know why they do things. Like,
Yeah.
they just are
Or
afraid.
no, he said because he was scared.
Yeah.
Which was like, I was like, oh, that just.
Exactly.
That's
Like,
so sad.
all dogs need a good home.
I
Like,
know.
So, yeah, that was a cool part as well.
But yeah, like you were saying too about his experiences with Atari as they because they were separated from the rest of the pack
Yeah.
for the whole time. So he kind of was like forced to go on a journey with him. He's like, I
Yes.
don't like you, I don't care about you, just, you know, all this stuff. And
Exactly.
and then the scene where Atari made him fetch the stick. too.
He's like, I'm only
He's
doing
like-
this because I feel bad for you.
He's like, I'm not fetching that stick.
Like, what a good, like, way that, like, he slowly starts to care for him.
Yeah.
But then he also kind of, like, has this weird dad role for Atari when he, like, Atari's, like, going up the slide and he's like, do
Oh,
not
yeah,
go
I
up
know.
the slide or I will leave you behind.
He's like, no, don't do it.
And Atari's just, like, backing up slowly, like a kid that doesn't listen to a parent.
It is a weird dad role almost. Yeah, I also like that scene.
Yeah.
But as far as like the whole, I don't know, we probably said before, the entire movie is stop motion.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's just, I can't get over like, I mean, really any full stop motion movie just amazes me how much
Yeah.
work is put into that, because especially like all the just tiny little models or the
Yes.
details in there, and like they have these huge landscapes, and then they have, because I was looking at online and it said it took 2 to 3 months to make each main character.
Wow.
And it didn't take 2 to 3 months for every puppet, but like the
Yeah.
main characters. But they made over 2,000 total puppets
That is crazy.
for like all the background people and like the like auditorium scenes and all
Yeah,
that.
I didn't even think about that.
It was insane.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, just the detail and every tiny little thing, and like the fur too.
Yes, like
which
'cause
is-
it moves and
yeah,
like
yeah.
because I've loved stop motion since Wallace and Gromit's Curse
Yeah.
of the Were-Rabbit.
Yeah, I love that movie.
That's been one of my favorites, and like since then, like every stop motion that's like mostly come out, like I adore, and this like honestly is in probably like my top 3 because it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like so detailed, so good, and just like I don't know, they like do a really good job with like building the world like
Oh, yeah.
that they've set up for like their little puppets and everything, and just like giving the backstories to them. So like it's awesome.
And I think it kind of like, because this is Wes Anderson's second stop motion movie, it kind of feeds into his style of cinematography, I think,
Yeah.
because he's very detail oriented and just, you know, very planned out. You know, this is how it's going to look, and this is how I want it to look, and every little thing has to be in its place. And so it's a lot easier to do that in a stop motion environment than like a live action.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I bet he had a lot of fun making this
Oh
movie.
yeah, definitely. And there's like a shot that like not necessarily mirrors Fantastic Mr. Fox, but it is like reminiscent in a way. And I'm sure there is like a shot like this, but it's like when Mira Kobayashi is like walking into like a control room and like the camera is literally on him and like it doesn't move from his back and it just like moves with him almost and like it just feels, I don't know, it has such a weird feeling.
The camera movement in a lot of these shots is very just like robotic almost. Like they'll just go and then just like stop perfectly. Like,
exactly.
Which you can do that because it's stop motion. It's easier to do that. But that was cool, especially like I remember a scene where, or it was the scene we were talking about earlier when they were fighting over the bag. It was like one pack would move and the camera would be like, and then the other pack like that. Yeah.
It was good. Like it like kind of sets up like a cowboy standoff. Like
oh,
it's
for sure,
like the entire movie feels like a standoff and like that's what's like cool and also reminiscent of Fantastic Mr. Fox. Just like really like digging into like the opposing forces of humans versus dogs. Which I'm surprised that like in the beginning part of the movie they give that backstory of like ancient history of like dogs were wild and like and then like the Kobayashi clan like by the Kobayashi clan and like they favored cats. Well, I was expecting cats to have a little bigger of a role, like almost like a cats versus dogs film, but like it wasn't, and they just kind of were there.
They kind of just brushed over the whole cat history.
Exactly. Like, what part did they play? Like,
this movie's about the dogs.
like,
it's not about the cats.
Exactly. It's like I get, but like you almost think like, are the cats controlling the humans? Like, what role were they playing?
Yeah.
Which is fine, because like the dogs really like made up for it, and like it wasn't that big of a deal, and like. But I would have liked to have seen more backstory of like why do they hate dogs suddenly?
Yeah. Why? Do you even see any cats in this movie?
You do once or twice. So when Mira Kobayashi goes to jail, you see cats like in their arms and like in prison with them, which is wild.
I'm bringing my cat with me to prison.
like the cats are getting imprisoned as well, which is crazy. But like, so I just thought like we'd see more of that. But like, I do think it was more interesting to see like it's like a matter of political parties and like a pandemic of like dogs. It's very
political when you think about it. I mean, just like the very authoritarian government and the tactics that they use to just undermine the citizens and just all these very complex things. I did think like, I mean, I agree with what you said about like, you know, just a little more backstory on why they hate dogs so much. But then also like, I felt like Mayor Kobayashi, you know, he was this close to like, you know, there was at the end he was going to annihilate all the dogs with the push of the red button, like everything's going to go, and then he just kind of switched. Like I felt like there could have been a little more to that maybe.
Yeah, like I don't know.
Because he was like, oh my God, stop! I have no honor. Let's not kill dogs.
Exactly, and like.
Okay, I'm going to prison. Bye.
Like everything else, like he was all about like respect and like he would like say like I will give like the platform to like the science party, but then like they assassinated the science party, which was like crazy with poison wasabi was crazy. Like it was kind of a weird switch, but like. I think it would have been made stronger if they showed the relationship between Atari and Mira Kobayashi, because like I do think like that was foundational for why he flipped sides, but like you really don't get any sense of their relationship because like they kind of hammer in that he's a distant uncle, not even like a real uncle. Yeah. He's like, this would hurt any distant uncle's soul, and it's like distant uncle.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's gonna be like get private tutors, and his uncle's off doing other stuff.
Exactly.
You know? Like, so I mean, they're not exactly close, but like, I don't know. What do you think? And this is an interesting thing to think about. Like, why? I mean, I guess the humans aren't the focus anyway, but like everything that the Japanese people say is all in through translators. There's no subtitles.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that a lot. Like, just like keeping it like that, and you'd really have to like kind of listen and watch for their body language instead, and like how the audience is reacting to what they're saying. And then when the translator comes in, like, because there are parts, there's no translator. We don't get Atari's translator at all.
Oh, yeah.
And like, it's just the dogs kind of like, and even the dogs are like, dang, I really wish someone spoke his language. Like, they openly admit they don't understand him for the most part, beyond like gestures.
Yeah, and it's something that's weird is like, so the dogs don't understand Japanese.
Yeah.
But it said at the beginning that all barks are rendered into English.
Yeah.
So does Atari, is he just witnessing barking? Like,
I think so. Because like, even then, like, there's the part where like Atari thinks that Spots is dead, and like, one of the dogs goes after him and is like,
the wrong dog died.
And it's like, what do you think? Like, he was here, like, just, like, what else could he have like heard? But you really don't know, because like that's just in their world.
Yeah.
But I did really enjoy the fact that it was just Japanese, and you only get someone else telling you, and like kind of how she was responding. Like, I enjoyed that a lot.
Which kind of puts you like in the dog's world more.
Yeah.
I would say, because there's like there's a divide between the dogs and the humans. Like, there's just like a barrier there.
Exactly.
But they can still coexist. So that's what I thought.
Yeah, and then you still get like the pseudo-English or like Japanese-English mix of like when they give commands like respecto and sito. Like,
Biscuito.
Biscuito. Yeah, exactly. Those are the important words that we have to know. But then like you also get... I'm forgetting her name, but she is the exchange student, Walker.
Yeah, what do you think about her?
I loved her. I thought she was just like interesting, and really does kind of play up like the character that is like fighting, like like is in the muck and like fighting against like the authoritarian
a real
power.
Student activist.
Exactly. Exactly. She's a student journalist and all this stuff. And then like Atari, on the other hand, is like fighting for this cause, but not necessarily like in the spotlight in the same way she is trying to become.
It's much more personal for Atari.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, so I thought that was cool. And then immediately you kind of get a sense of like her, and like you kind of almost know that Nutmeg is her owner, like based on their hair, I think was a really good indicator, because Walker has really curly hair, and then Nutmeg for some reason has like, which is never explained, her hair's soft and like shampooed. Yeah. And then you have Chief and Atari. And
like Jeff Goldblum's character was like, how does she keep her fur so clean? There's no shampoo on trash.
Like, that's the important questions we're asking. Yeah. Like, ugh. So
they're also kind of like the same color too. The
yes.
color of the hair is the same.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. And which I also think it's funny that like Chief is not the dog that we think he looks like at the very end, because they bathe him, and you're just like,
yeah, that was interesting, because I didn't remember a lot about this movie when I like rewatched it. So for a second, I was like, when he washed him, I was like, oh my God, is he Spot?
Like, he didn't. What? He had amnesia.
Yeah,
like,
what?
Oh my gosh.
But that would have been. I mean, that would have been a massive plot hole if they went that way.
Like, why?
But because his nose is different color.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess just going back to just the stop motion. Just like I feel like almost every frame in this movie could be like an art piece.
Exactly.
Like you could just take a screenshot and like hang it up on your wall, and it would look so cool.
Exactly. One of my favorite set pieces that they had was in the sushi/bar, or like the science lab/bar. I really don't know what it was, but it was where Walker went to go find Yoko Ono.
Oh yeah. It was like a science lab.
Yeah, and like the wall is entirely like made of like science beakers in different colors.
Oh yeah, it's lit up with different color lights.
Exactly. Yeah. I would love to put that in my own home. Like that's just so cool. Like it felt like very like retro in a way, but like I don't know, just the really good set design pieces and how they're framing up the character, or the characters and everything. So yeah, like just so much detail that like everywhere you look is cool.
It's really interesting, like world design, like how they have Japan, because they say it's 20 years in the future, but it's still very like this could be happening in like the 1960s or something, like with the TVs, and like I think they show like a little scene of like a what's his name, Mayor Kobayashi, like on a TV talk show, and it looks very like 60s, 70s inspired, and just the technology and stuff like that could be very. So what is your favorite moment in the film? I think maybe we already talked about this.
I don't know. I'll say. Let me think about it
Okay,
for a second.
I'll think too.
Okay.
Think about mine. I would say my favorite moment was, I mean, I kind of talked about this before, but like Chief's explanation of his backstory and where he's like, I bite, you know, and then you're like, okay, well, because he's really not that much of a likable character, and then he changes. He does like a complete change, really.
Yeah.
But like once Atari shows up, he's kind of the outcast.
Exactly.
With the dogs, and you're like, you know, why is that? Why is he not wanting to interact? And it could be, you know, just because he's scared.
Exactly, yeah. And like the whole time he's very curious of Atari too, because like he's constantly looking at him, and when Atari looks back, he's like, you didn't
he's like,
see
oh, I'm
me.
just gonna dig over here.
Every single time, but then like he constantly is stuck with him, which is cute. So yeah, that's a really good scene.
And like when he's, like I said before, like when he's forced to interact with him, that's when he really just starts to open up and be loving again.
Exactly.
Which was very nice. I also liked, there was one moment where, it was actually during that same scene, where in the middle of like Chief's explanation of like his backstory, I forgot who was listening to him. I think it was Edward Norton's character. But he's like they're all listening so intently, like, oh, you know, tell me about that. Oh, you weren't always a stray? Oh, wow. I always love like their little conversations.
Because they're such like dinky characters.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But like he was like super intently listening, and then all of a sudden like Chief stops talking. He's like, you got a tick. And then he like bites his nose and spits it out. And then he just keeps talking. He's like, yeah, so the grandma locked me in the shed. It was so funny.
They do it so many times where they like literally take you out of the story because of the interruption. And you're like, oh, I have to think about these things now. So yeah, that's really good. I think one of my favorites is when we finally get revealed like what has happened to Spot, and and I really love Spots because I had stuffed animal named Spots, so like I was like, oh, this is perfect. So like, when it gets revealed, like he was taken by the cannibal dogs, and like, and there's like clearly a big miscommunication because he's like, are you going to eat me? And he's like, I have like weapon teeth and like all this stuff.
The military grade teeth. Yeah.
And he smiles and like
zooms in.
And so like there's that, and they're like, we only did that once, and we didn't want to, and like without his sacrifice, we would have died. And like you're like, oh, my bad. So that was really like funny but sad, and then like then you kind of get the backstory that these dogs have been like experimented on, and like you get to see oh gosh, Peppermint, I think is her name,
Spots' mate?
Yeah, Spots' mate.
I think that's her name.
Yeah, Peppermint. And like just how like softly he talks to her, and like it was such a change from like how like he is like such a bodyguard character and is like very serious and like formal. Yeah. And then like he just like lowers his voice, and it was just like such like a subtle thing, but I really enjoyed like all of the character interactions in that scene, and like just how they released him. Although I would really, really, really love to know how that dog that died got into that same exact cage that like they never explained that. Sports. Who was that?
Yeah,
how did he get in there? Like, why did they replace him?
So they moved the cage. Yeah, that's a plot hole.
Yeah.
Wes, you gotta
fix that.
Yeah.
Unless it was the dog they ate. I don't remember what his name was.
I don't know. Well, the cage was locked, so they couldn't. Well, the skeleton was like laying in there, so you know he just died of like starvation.
You're right.
Poor Sport.
Dang, he didn't deserve
pour
that.
One out for Sport. But I was gonna say too, like, I really enjoy Spots' character and how like formal he is.
Yes.
Like, it was really a touching moment, but it was also funny when they're all like in the sewer at the end.
Yeah.
And he's talking to Atari. He's like, "I'm sorry, I know I've dedicated my life to being your bodyguard and protecting you at all costs, but complications have there's been extreme life alterations, and I can't continue my
service.
mission,
Yeah.
my service. So there's going to be some interruptions here. So all this
It
stuff.
was so funny.
And they're in the middle of like a sewer rushing down. Like,
they're drowning.
Yeah.
And he's just like
They're swimming.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like not even telling him like, yeah, I have a wife now and like we're expecting kids. Like
Well,
he
did that,
He
yeah.
does say it, but like he's
it's
like
at the very end.
taking it so long because he's like, I have to be like informative to this
Yeah.
child, and this kid is not
Atari's like,
informative.
Atari's just like, huh?
My dog's here. I have 2 dogs now. Because now there's like 2 identical dogs,
Yeah.
except one's with the pink nose and one with the black
my
nose,
God.
and you're just like, who am I looking at?
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I
that
thought
was
that
good.
was funny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so is there anything else like you wanted to talk about that really stuck out to you about the movie?
I will say I also loved the exchanging of like bodyguard role from Spots to Chief. I really thought that was just sweet and like showed like a true like change in Chief's character. Like
for sure.
he is like not only like wanting to be best friends and like be his dog or be Atari's dog, but he wants to like actually protect him and
For sure,
actively be
yeah.
in his life. And so that was just like really sweet.
And that like he's ready to take on that role and like he's
Exactly.
serious about it. That was really
yeah.
nice.
So very cool stuff.
Well, I want to thank you, Rosalie, for coming onto the show, and I want to thank you guys. And I really wish I could say that there's another episode of Mike's Movie Talk coming out, but unfortunately, this is the last episode, which is very sad. I know you're crying over there, Philip. I can see you right now, and also Kaden. But I just wanted to say thank you guys for watching this show. And thank you to everyone, behind the camera and whoever, all you guys who have worked to make this show possible. I know I'm getting sentimental right now, but, if you would have asked me, like, I started this show beginning of junior year. If you would have asked me before that I would have my own show and get to, talk about the movies I love with amazing people that also love these movies, and just hang out and have this show, I wouldn't believe you, it would be. It's just been a real honor to have this show here at Viking Fusion and all that. So, yep. I wish I could say, see you next time. But I really couldn't have done it without you guys. I know it's cliche, but thank you, Rosalie, again,
Thank
for coming
you for
on.
having me.
Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Mike's Movie Talk. Yeah.